Welcome to the Stoughton Godfather Show. I'm your host, Peter Ventresco. My two special guests, two lovely ladies, town meeting reps, Joanne Rosenblatt and Lisa Lyons. And we will be talking town politics. So this show is basically going to be about Joanne Rosenblatt, the trouble she had with the environmental committee. So we're going to start with the Selectmen's meeting of September 9th, 2023.
The issue that I'm bringing up was addressed, but it wasn't resolved. That's why I'm here, to try to accomplish that. I wanted to reconcile the comments that I sent in an email to the town manager and selectmen regarding the egregious profanity and harassment I received just for attending a climate change committee meeting. And Selectmen KV and Tom Coulter were kind enough to meet with me, but upon further reflection, I feel we only addressed the surface of the problem and something more needed to be done because these actions are just not okay. To me, people like that, who could act like that or say these things, should not be on any committee. And that's what prompted me to send the second email. I merely felt that an apology was the least they could do. Yet, I haven't heard anything as of today. The chair and the vice chair did nothing to address the issue at the time that or afterwards that I know of, and no apologies have been forthcoming. So I'm led to believe that they approve of this behavior. One important underlying fact that I need to address is that I continuously brought to the attention that first I was being thwarted from even knowing about the climate committee schedule, and then secondly, when Eshudo O, who's a member of the committee and a very kind-hearted woman and unbiased, she handed me a memo that was being passed out, and the chair felt that rather than tell me that these papers aren't for me, could I please just hand it back, which I would have done. Instead, Molly ripped them out of my hand, which is really a physical assault. And again, I brought this to the attention and it was never completely addressed. So now here we are today because it's escalated into 5 profanity-laden rants toward me at the meeting that happened actually before the meeting. And I do appreciate Selectman KV and Tom Coulter's efforts, but in retrospect, I'm a town resident who should not have had to have that, endure that type of treatment and by people that were appointed by the selectmen, and that's why I'm speaking out. I never asked for their removal, for the removal of all 3 of the people, Michael, Molly, or Laura. I just merely asked for an apology, and apparently they don't feel their behavior warrants an apology because I've heard nothing so far. I am also requesting the written documentation pertaining to the measures taken or whatever happened for that abhorrent behavior, and I don't know how that works, so if you could tell me how that would transpire, I would appreciate that, because I just don't know. And I understand that this committee chooses not to have public comment, but when I spoke prior to the onset of the meeting, I was told to shut up and sit at the back of the room. I was disparaged and defamed to the other members by Molly and not allowed to speak before or even after the meeting. And that's just a flagrant impingement of my constitutional right to free speech, which they have no right to do to me. The whole experience has caused me to see that this is not only is this behavior a small microcosm of what's happening on a national level, but it shows that hatred has just infiltrated these meetings, and for no reason, just other than the fact that I want to give different viewpoints, and I've been reviled and treated abhorrently and hated really for that. I'm not desirous of causing any trouble, but trouble has been given to me, and I just want to bring it up here to resolve it so exponentially that won't grow deeper. Selectman KV was also kind enough to explain to me that the committee was designed and voted upon during the town meeting to seek climate change measures, not to hash out empirical versus non-empirical evidence, as I was trying to do. He then explained to me that I would need to develop another committee for that specific purpose, and he offered to meet with me to help me achieve this goal. That hasn't happened, and I just wanted to follow up to find out how to do that.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair KV is not here this evening, and you expressed a lot, so I'm just trying to remember all the points. As I recall, and and I know this as a fact, you met with Vice Chair Cavey and our town manager, Mr. Coulter, for about an hour and a half. I believe you and your father, you and your dad, and you discussed the situation in detail. You discussed the purpose and intent of that committee, and they discuss with you the availability to help you to maybe form your own committee. So that's outside of the realm of being a town manager or the vice chair. That was something that they wanted to be helpful to do. So I'll leave that to the three of you to work that out, and maybe you can take the lead in doing that on your own. And it starts with getting signatures, if you care to do so.
Anybody want to elaborate on that statement she just made?
I could point something out, or would you care to pick up on that?
Both of us can. I'll just say real quickly that since that happened, I don't want to pursue another type of committee. I don't think that's the answer. I've gone beyond that, and if you want to address that.
So either at this meeting or a subsequent meeting, Scott Carrera ended up speaking
Well,
up.
we'll get to that when Scott speaks.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
That's
to
coming
say
up.
that we shouldn't need
Yeah.
a separate
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah,
that
that's right. We've gone
it
beyond
defeats the purpose of
Yeah,
a
yeah.
full
All right.
breath expression.
You're absolutely
Okay.
right.
All right, another committee, which is, I think, ridiculous, because people should have different points of view on the same committee.
Yeah.
You can't be in lockstep, because it never works out. We had select board a few years back that were in lockstep with the chairman of the board, and it was just a one-man decision. The other four selectmen went along with it. Well, you don't want that. A committee like this, or any committee, there should be people there with different views, different opinion, but heading for the same goal. One person they're both going for the same goal, but they got different avenues to get there, so one might be better than the other, but they don't want to explore that. So, that being said, I guess, I'm against the other committee.
Me too.
Yeah,
And-
you can have different opinions and come to some form of consensus, compromise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, speak up. All right, the other thing is, oh boy, I'm taking a senior moment. Also, the chair said that Tom Coulter, the town manager, and Selectman Gavey spent an hour and a half, 2 hours talking with the committee. Now, that's, I don't know how many weeks ago that was, but I don't know what became of that discussion in that committee. Have you heard anything?
Nothing to this day, and here it is, almost Thanksgiving. Yeah,
All right, so I'm going to say nothing really happened out of that committee.
exactly.
All right, so Kevin, we can continue.
The other is how we reacted to situations that are outside our code of conduct, that is the select board's code of conduct. We think it's not right. It's harmful to our community at large. But I can say, in all honesty, the action that we take behind the scenes is not something that we want to publicize that we did. But we did talk and express from all points of perspective, and we always listen. We always listen to situations, but sometimes it's beyond the control of the select board. We did have appointing authority, but what occurred to you, we can look at it from a lot of different perspectives. One perspective that wasn't raised, and because I come from a family of military and I come from a family of law enforcement, I have to be very careful what I say because I know just enough to make me dangerous. And sometimes if the chair asks you or doesn't recognize you to speak, then it could be interpreted, in the broader scope of things as being a public nuisance, right? So, how far do we go? What do we say? We were trying to do things to make it so we live in a community that we appreciate one another and we listen to what each other says, but we also have to abide by open meeting laws. And one of the things that is you get organized and you have a chair and the chair recognizes you. So it was a lot of elements that happened, and it was unfortunate that things happened like that to you. And I really feel deep in my heart sorry that it did, because things like that have happened to you, have happened to me as well. And that's something, one of the reasons why I really wanted to have a code of conduct that is passed on to all of the staff, that's passed on to all of the committees that are in the town, but we only have so much authority to encourage people to be respectful. And sometimes people say things and it offends someone else, and I'm not saying to the degree that it offended you, but I'm just saying to the ground of saying things that you say, ouch, ouch, did I warrant that, right? So I asked you honestly and sincerely to work with the town manager and Coulter and maybe take the lead on your own if you would like to start a committee that's focused on what you would like to do, which is get your signatures, and it has to be presented to us, and then it has to be approved at town meeting.
Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to address what I just heard from the chair. So while I do appreciate that she apologized to Johna for the abhorrent behavior she had to experience, she is basically pardoning the select board for, one, keeping those members on the climate change committee. They should have been removed immediately.
Exactly.
One, and two, she's taking the response. They appointed these people, and she did put, and I commend her for putting a code of conduct. It's a sorry state of affairs when you have to have a code of conduct, but this is a perfect example of why we have to show each other respect, even if we disagree on issues. And I feel she pardoned the select board, and there's no way those people should still be on that climate. You cannot out of one side of your mouth say that you want citizens to be more involved in government, and now she's trying to, John has already come to the select board to say what a difficult time she's having just to be able to attend and find out what's going on in the climate committee.
Schedule even.
Just a simple schedule. Why weren't they having open public comments like the select board has? I mean, the whole thing is abhorrent, and it's not addressing the issue, and it's skirting the issue.
Anything you say?
Yeah, it's definitely what's happening is the fact that I am not being able to get anyone who is accountable. They will not let me really know who's accountable, and they're just kind of appeasing me and hoping I'll go away is basically what's happening.
Exactly.
All right, John, I know it's going to be she said, he said, but what did the gentleman say to you?
5 times he said to me.
5 times?
Yep.
Oh, I thought it was once, 5 times.
5 times. He said to me, shut the F up.
Speak up.
Shut the F up. Shut the F up 5 times to me. And all I did is I walked over to him. I was going to ask him a question, and that was the response I got from him. Prior to that, he and I were the first ones at the meeting, and I said to him, you have been the most open-minded, and I just want to thank you because the other members have been kind of nasty and very closed-minded to me, and I want to thank you for not being like that. Only 2 minutes later, he was being just as bad as, well, actually worse than they were to me.
All right. I'm sure there's a code of conduct in the town with the employees. But whether there is or there isn't a point here. No
Yeah.
person on any committee or any town employee or anything else should use the F word to anybody, especially a man saying it to a lady. I mean, a gentleman doesn't use some kind of words to a woman. At least that's the way I was brought up.
Same.
So my feeling is anybody use that word on a lady or any kind of meeting in the public should definitely be removed immediately. And that's the only ones that can remove them are the Board of Selectmen. Now, they can say whatever they want. I think they're skirting around the issue because they don't want to make a big thing out of this, but I think they have to set an example. Because if they don't, it's going to be like the government of Washington. It's just going to be one scandal after another, and nobody ever falls down. So if you want to stop this from happening again, somebody has to pay now. Now, I think you had an issue with the chair of the board too.
Yes, I went
Speak up.
over to the chairperson and I showed them the code of ethics and I said, "This, you should say something to him because this is just absolutely abhorrent what he's saying to me." She completely ignored me, put her head down, and then the vice chair stepped in and said, "Shut up and get in the back of the room." And that's how I was treated. They ignored me or told me to go back to the back of the room like a petulant child. That's how I was treated.
Well, all I'm going to say is there's one supreme being, and he's up in heaven. These people on these committees, I think they're a little crazy. They go overboard. I think they're setting themselves up as a supreme being on these different boards, and I got news for them. They're not. Okay, Kevin, next.
And with that, I would like to know if there is anything else anyone wants to say, or can we move on to the next citizen's comment?
Can I say something further, or are you waiting for them to say something?
I am really trying to move forward to the next citizen's comment.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I understand your argument. I wasn't going to say anything, but this is something that needs a little bit more talk. It should be handled, with a meeting with the players or what we're going to do, because this is really not the intention of citizens' comments to be here and then say, I'm looking for solutions now, and we make it a whole meeting issue. And I agree with the chair that we need to move forward because we have other business to do tonight. But again, you have a right to be here. We're one town. We're one town. If people don't act accordingly, we need to fix that. I have all the faith in the world that the people that are in this building every day doing their job have the ability to do that. Whoever that be, we're not going to have a department head that doesn't deal with it, but it should be something that a member of the board working with the town manager or the chair, her designee, that we get it resolved. I like the idea that the chair mentioned on if you want to put a committee together that is the other side of that issue. It's a logical thing. It's a logical thing. This committee was put together for one purpose. If there's another side of a story, well, just like they came forward, one Stoughton resident came forward, got the signatures to go to town meeting, got it voted. I can't see why town meeting wouldn't do that, because it allows, and that's what America's great for, is we debate. And everybody has their voice heard. I'm concerned that we're breaking down here and we're getting this so it's becoming personal, and I don't want to see that happen. I think there's got to be something done that people know etiquette of meetings. Believe me, I've sat here many nights and want to jump over the table at some people, but you can't do that. It's not what we're here to do. But we try to do things so that we can engage and that everybody has their voice heard. We may not agree, we may argue like crazy. We're good at that in Stoughton. But that everybody has that right to do that and bring facts up to town meeting so that when an issue is voted at town meeting, you get both sides of it.
Yes.
So, and I would be more than willing to speak with anybody and add my 2 cents into it and see what we can come up with for a plan, and then somebody follows up with you.
Okay, so should I leave it that someone will follow up with me? Is that
Well,
what
I'll
you're
tell
saying?
you, if,
Excuse me, Mr. McCrisky there. We have Mr. Coulter and Mr. Carrera. Mr. Carrera, before we...
I'm going to speak from an angle I didn't think I'd ever speak from. Inclusion. That's all you hear. I don't understand why every committee we have in this town, there's a nay side, there's a different view side. Some people don't want to see building affect the Concom. They're against anything that a shovel goes in the ground. That's their view. I don't understand why somebody told a resident that she has to start another committee because her view is different from the inside of many people. But the word is inclusion. If we tell her, I don't know, maybe somebody's going to tell me, if we tell Johna to start another committee, when's it start that we're going to now get a new Concom? Maybe we got to start a new planning board because I know a lot of people aren't happy with the stuff that's going on there. So I think we got to fix, like Joe said, this might be another layer. But I think starting another committee is just going to bog down maybe what the initial committee is supposed to be for. But I think anybody has the right to have a view the other way. If it doesn't get voted on or go their way, then they had their time in the sun. But I'll tell you right now, I am not for starting more committees because another committee has a different view. And I am not saying people were treated because I wasn't there. But I'm going to stop it now. Use the word inclusion that everybody's hammering on us. And that's where I stand now, because I've accepted it. Thank you.
Okay, to address this, I want to commend Scott Carrara, okay? He has common sense, and we need more of that in this town. He hit the nail on the head when he talked about common sense, okay?
That's right.
The chairperson is always talking about, we want Stoughton to be, to use her words, a welcoming community, okay?
And this was ugly.
I don't even need to repeat it. Scott Carrera just said it right there. We don't need all these multiples. We need to be civil to one another, and when we're not, it's up to this select board to be accountable and transparent. The chair said she doesn't want to publicize how they might handle something behind the scenes. It should be absolute public, just like, I don't know if it was another selectman just said, to be transparent and held accountable and set an example for this town, and to just reiterate what you just said, which a moment ago was, these people, we need to, that is unacceptable, and I'm calling for them to be removed, and the select board, they appointed these people if it falls on their lap.
Okay, John?
Well, this has been a problem from the get-go because when I tried to go to the meeting to see if I could get appointed to the committee, there was another member who was appointed over me who didn't meet the deadline, who didn't show up at the meeting and talk in front of the selectmen in order to get elected to this committee. And I lost there was, for example, 5 spots and there were 6 of us, and I lost out to this person. And it just doesn't make sense to me that should happen. I know it's going off on a tangent other than what we were originally speaking about, but it speaks to the fact that they don't want me on there. And then when I'm treated poorly, they don't really want to address it. That's basically what it amounts to. And I did go and speak to someone in authority, and they said to me that this is okay. You don't have to meet the deadline. You can apply for that position for the committee even up to that day. So I guess that is okay. But it just has been obvious from the beginning that they don't want me on there, and even though I had run into this abhorrent behavior and I try to address it, nothing's done.
Okay, that makes sense to me because you were a wild card. They didn't know you, but so they wanted somebody they knew that was in lockstep with them.
Exactly.
That's the answer.
But in
Can I
terms
just-
of a deadline, excuse me, I'm sorry,
the
John.
deadline too.
In terms of a deadline,
Yeah.
what's I don't I would like to know the authority who said that to her, and then I want that transparent too, because what are the rules? The rules should be presented when you say something's a
Yeah.
deadline. Other people may not have stood up because they thought they passed a deadline. I mean, the rules need to be for
Yeah.
thee and me.
All right, so I agree with what you said about Scott. He hit the nail right on the head.
Absolutely,
He's
he
absolutely
did.
right.
He was perfect.
Also, Joe
Joe
saying
McChrystal.
about another committee or something, but he didn't like the idea of you going up there on citizens' comments. Well, I always disagree with them on that because citizens' comments
Our citizens.
is the only way people like us can be heard.
Correct.
Because they always say, well, you got to go on the agenda. Well, that's fine. You can go on the agenda. That doesn't mean they're going to bring you up. They might bring you up next year because it's up to the chair to set the agenda. A lot of times, just like the State House, they let a bill die because they just keep putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. So it's the same thing trying to get on the agenda.
Exactly.
So to me, I'm in favor of citizens' comments.
Me
In
too.
The committee that passed time. Oh, a new committee that they're suggesting you do, Jonah. That'll never fly through
Town meeting.
town meeting.
Yeah.
Never happen. Never happen.
Yeah.
So that's just don't even think about it. 'Cause you're gonna waste
It
your
would be a
time.
waste of time. I agree with you. I happen to agree with you on that.
Okay, Kevin.
Chair.
Mr. Gito, just 1 minute, and Ms. Jutras on the line, and Mrs. Walsh, just 1 second.
The committee was formed by the town meeting for the express purpose of presenting to the town things that the town could do in order to mitigate global warming. The committee wasn't formed to debate whether there was or was not global warming. So if there is a group that wants to propose to town meeting that they want to form a committee, a town meeting committee, to show that there's not global warming, that would be fine. But I am not going to endorse a committee to say that there's not global warming, because I don't believe that's true. And I don't believe that most of the people now believe that to be true, that there is no global warming and no man-made global warming. So I'm not for a big debate on this, and I'm not interested in having the committee that was formed to provide to the town things that it could do to mitigate global warming, to get bogged down in a discussion of whether or not there is or is not global warming. I would suggest that the people who believe that something should happen with global warming to mitigate it will have to come back to the town with their proposals. The town will then have to decide whether or not they want to spend the money or take the action in one way or another to implement those things. And that may occur at town meeting. And at town meeting, people can speak for and against those proposals. But there's serious business to do, whether some people believe it's serious or not, whether or not they believe that it should happen or not. That committee should be allowed to do its job. And if some other committee wishes to form, then they can go through a process that isn't going to get my vote to do that. But they can do it, and if they get the votes, then they can go ahead and form the committee. If it's going to be a town committee, then they have to have town meeting approval or selectmen approval to do that.
Okay.
Want to respond?
Yes, I do. First of all, Mr. Gito just made the point I was trying to make, that they only want to hear their own agenda, and anything that strays from that they don't want to engage in. That's number one. Number two, he made an assumption that's not accurate. I wasn't trying to give an alternate view as to whether or not global warming exists. I wanted to address things like the thermal runaway that's happening if the batteries get damaged in an electric vehicle. These electric vehicles, the batteries burn. They're so hot they can't even put the fires out, and they have to let them sit there for a few days, and then they have to worry that they're going to explode afterwards. And I'm thinking, if you're going to make everyone have an electric vehicle, you should be addressing these types of dangers that are there. Are you going to say that all school buses have to have an electric have to be an electric vehicle? And then how are you going to address this factor? Those are the things that I was trying to bring out. I wasn't trying to debate whether or not global warming or climate change is an issue. I wanted to bring up very valid concerns that I had, but they have tunnel vision, and they didn't even want to hear what I had to say.
What about the DEI piece you asked about at town meeting?
That's an interesting thing too. At town meeting, when they were proposing this particular committee to be to give them the go-ahead, I asked Molly, who was the procurer of this proposal, I said, it states in here that you want to include DEI. How does that correlate with climate change? And she said, we're not going to have anything to do with DEI. And I said, well, it says it right in your proposal. Well, it's not part of it. It's not going to be any part of it. Well, I went to one of the meetings, and they were discussing how to correlate DEI with climate change. So it's very disconcerting to be told that it won't include it and then find out later that it was.
All right. I think Mr. Gito's wrong anyways. We're worrying about climate change. I'm going to go back to the 60s, driving down the Southeast Expressway into Boston. And when you get around Milton, Dorchester, you look at the skyline of Boston, and there'd be a big cloud overhanging the city. That was all pollution from the city. That's all been, years ago, it's been cleared up. Okay. This country, the country has a 2050 deadline to meet certain standards as far as cleaning up the pollution in the air quality. And we're already there, and we still got a few more years to go. If these people are so worried about our lives with the atmosphere, why don't they go over to China, go over to Russia, where these people pollute? China puts up a new coal-fired plant once a month, and they're really polluting. We're not doing anything to them. So why should we be suffering over here when we already met our obligations? Go after the rest of the world. And
Exactly.
And Gito, again, it's a one-way street. It's what they want, not what any of us else want. And I'm not buying this global warming. It's as bad as it is, because if you look back at history, when they take borings in the ground up in Alaska, they go down deep and they come up 2,000 years ago. There's different layers where they have problems. So I don't think this is, I'm not saying a lot of this isn't man-made, which it is, but I don't think it's 100% all man-made.
Well,
Nature's doing itself.
and-
And if this Molly Cochran, her in a big plastic bag stuff, being in grocery stores, I could go to the grocery store, put 6 grocery bags here, and still have a key to open the door. And I can't do that no more because of paper bags. But if she wants to save the atmosphere, why don't you go after Prime? When they send an item this big in a box,
in a big, huge
that
cardboard
big,
box.
Save the trees. That's where you get the best quality to save the atmosphere, not the plastics. Everything you buy, you eliminate the plastic bag, but everything you buy in a grocery store to take home comes in some kind of a plastic wrapper.
And what
Just think about how stupid it is.
Not to mention, she acquiesced on plastic when we were talking about the trash.
yeah.
It's just
Now we
it's
went
just
back to using
hypocritical.
plastic.
I mean, at best,
And-
it's about control, Peter.
Yes, it
It
is.
is not about what's the best interest. If you think about it, the Earth has been under climate change since its inception, and we need to stop the hysteria and fear porn. It's affecting us adults and the children, and it's over the top.
I know.
And-
but you got people like this. They know everything. The rest of us know nothing.
Nothing.
They're like gods. Whatever they say, you got to take it for what it's worth.
And not to mention, when
And-
she had this, she cited the New York Times. How many times have the
It's
New
not a
York
valid
Times
source.
been proven to be
Well, yeah.
outright lying?
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, if you're going to be implementing all these electric cars, these batteries can cost up to $20,000 to replace. What are you going to do with all the excess when people can't replace them? They can't afford it. What are you going to do with all the excess batteries? What about the solar panels? Same problem. They're between $6,000 and $20,000 to replace as well. What are you going to do? So you're actually making more problems. I don't mind that you want to fix these things, but when you try to bring up, like play the devil's advocate and say, but what about this? They want to shut you up. They want to tell you to shut the F up, and they don't want to hear what you've got to say. And that's what I'm commenting on, because if we don't address this now, they're going to be more and more enabled and feel more and more entitled to just keep drowning us out, stepping on us, and ignoring our rights and stomping on our freedom of speech.
Just think about this. Go back a couple of years before this administration got in. What's your monthly bills amounted to what they are today? Mine's doubled, more than doubled. Because everything has gone sky high. The electric, the gas, everything else. Because why? We start producing it here, we got to depend on not only foreign countries, but our enemies. Our enemies don't want to kill us. We're buying their fuel from them. Does that make sense?
And it's not as clean either.
Yeah, it's the dirtiest oil going.
Yeah, ours
Plus,
is cleaner.
These mines where they dig for the oil, the stuff, I think it's lithium.
Yep, and others.
It's the
manganese.
biggest pollution going to make these electric batteries. So they're doing more harm to the environment and people dying from, kids in Africa,
To mine
slave
them.
labor, digging it. China,
China.
slave labor. And the only country in
India.
the world that's going to benefit from all these batteries is China, not us. We're making China richer, our enemies. So, plus, they want to do away with gas stoves. So I like to cook. I bake with electric, but I cook with gas because you can control gas quick. You need a hot flame quick and they want to die down. Okay, you can't do that with electricity. Now they're telling me that I can't cook with gas. You know what I mean? I can't heat with gas. I got to heat with the most expensive fuel. It's crazy. And where's all this electricity come from for these electric cars? From power plants. They don't come from electric power plant. They come from a gas-fired plant or hydroelectric. Oh, that's the other thing. If they want to save the earth, put more hydroelectric power plants. That's the cleanest way to generate electricity, hydroelectric. No, they want to go all these crazy things. But just imagine, in 1978, the blizzard 78, I spent 20-some-odd hours on 128, stuck with 2,000 other vehicles. Now, imagine if I had an electric car, a lot of us would have frozen to death out there because the electric car wouldn't have lasted but a few hours. Where I had a full tank of gas, so it kept me warm all night long because start it up, get warm, shut it off. You know what I mean? There's so many things involved here, safety things. So, plus the electric grid, we're going to have all kinds of rolling blackouts because we can't keep up generating.
Yeah, we can't even keep up this summer with what we had. So how are we going to add all these extra EVs into the mix on the grid we have that can't even support what it's got now? That's one of the questions I asked, and I was told, well, we'll decide if we're going to talk about that with you later. So.
And we're forgetting to speak about the opportunity cost and the subsidizing of these electric vehicles that nobody is purchasing, and that is preventing there's a shortage of vehicles that people actually want, because the government is interfering with the free market.
Yeah, well,
And
I'm
Exactly.
glad you brought that up.
That's a good point.
Ford Motor Company's lost $3 billion on electric cars because nobody wants them. Nobody can afford them. Okay? And the windmills out there in the Cape Cod Bay, they shut it all down because the contractors can't afford to do it.
And it was killing
interfering
with the whales. The whales were dying
Yeah,
off
well,
too.
that's right, but nobody cares about the whales.
I do.
Well,
But
if you
also,
can't-
I
if you
see,
care about the environment,
I
you should
see
care about
a
whales.
picture there with a windmill. There's a dead eagle.
Oh,
Okay, and the caption was,
Ah.
"Nobody's saying anything."
there's somebody saying
But
something.
wait a minute. But if it was an eagle or a duck with oil on it, then it would be, oh, geez, it'd be all over the news everywhere. You know what
It's skewed viewpoints, and
Yeah.
that's
the problem.
You just brought us back to the main point of
Point,
these
that's right. You
committees.
need different
you
viewpoints.
can right a healthy
Debate.
I mean? Discussions,
Healthy debate.
discussions make the best decisions
Solutions,
for
that's right.
exactly.
And even when you have those, we had a hybrid. Our electricity bill went from, let's say, 100 to 150. When we got rid of it, it went back down to 100.
Yeah.
It's like, so I'm paying more, and
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, but you're not being told that. You're being told you're saving money, which isn't the most important thing, but it's a factor for everyone.
Well,
Let's face
a friend
it.
of mine bought one. He was all hot for it. He got it like he waited a whole year, and he had a deal directly with Volkswagen in New York. I mean, in Germany. He couldn't go through the deal. He had a deal with Volkswagen direct. So he got the car. He waited a year. He got the car, and he loved it. I don't know what happened, but he had the electrician come in and upgrade the electric power coming in, and he put the charger station in there, and he put a charging station down at his place down at Cape, and then 8 months later, I said, "How's the electric car?" He says, "I got rid of it." I said, "Really?" "Nope, I had it." So you spent all this money for nothing.
That's right. It's all well and good to have it at your two houses, but when you want to travel,
Yeah.
You're going to have to make a lot of pit
and
stops.
who wants to worry about where they're going to get their next charge from, or like
Yeah.
you just said about being
Yeah.
in a winter storm. I don't know about you, but you remember the hoverboards on the kids' toys that were
That's right.
blowing
Yeah.
up? Or, I mean, we just have to think things through.
That's
Well,
right.
another thing too, in an apartment building, so you're up on the third floor, you're going to have a cord that hangs down to go to, I mean, plus they don't even have enough charging stations in apartment buildings, so you'd have to add so
more-
many.
one
More to
time-
your point, excuse me, Pete, more to your point, what happens if you're in that apartment building and your neighbor has an electric car and they ran over a curb or something? They didn't know the damage they did to that
Thermal runaway.
thermal runaway, and the whole building goes up. We had 2 firefighters die in New Jersey over thermal runaway. These people are not articulating how dangerous this is, and I will fight tooth and nail they put our children on an electric bus. This is very dangerous.
No, it's just like all these millionaires when they go every year or every couple of years, they go to England or wherever they go for all these green meetings, and they all fly in
Geneva
private
and
jets.
Davos.
Yes.
Private jets. Right? It's do what I say, but not as I do.
Yeah,
Bingo.
because if you really cared about the environment, you wouldn't be doing
Bingo.
that.
All right, but one time I drove all the way up to Nova Scotia, then to Prince Edward Island. But Prince Edward Island, I had to take a ferry from Nova Scotia, but now they built a bridge 14
Oh,
miles
yes.
to go across it. But it took a lot of hours to get there, and I had to stop a few different nights at motels. Now, if I had an electric car doing that today, what am I going to do? Add 5-6 more days to the trip?
Absolutely, that's a
5
great
6
point.
more nights
It's a great
cost
point.
a whole, you know what I mean? It's
I get your
Absolutely.
point. I'm just more concerned with how dangerous it is, how expensive it is, and how it's affecting the opportunity of allowing the free market to take its course.
yeah.
Well, just wanted to bring up some of these points and have somebody address them and explain, like, are you incorporating these factors in when you're making these mandates that you want to have us follow? And they don't want to hear it.
And
They
didn't
just want
say
to do
something
it.
about social credit scoring?
Oh, yes, that's another thing they want to implement
The other
on
thing,
us.
under Obama, they spent, I don't know, $35 million, some company in Massachusetts to make solar panels.
Yes.
And
they
they
went
were going to be
belly-
American made, and what happened?
Belly up.
They moved to China, and then they went belly up.
Taxpayer dollars blown yet
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Go ahead, what were you saying about,
Well, I don't mind if you want to make the environment better and cleaner and more, that's great. All I'm saying is you just can't have blinders on. You've got to incorporate the good and the bad, and you've got to address the problems that you'll incur. You can't just act like it's a magic wand you can wave and everything changes and everything's great. I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't, and it's not realistic, and that's all I wanted to address. I didn't want to get into a debate of, yes, it occurred, there is global warming, and no, there isn't. That wasn't my point. So Mr. Gito was really off on the wrong track. He made a complete crazy assumption.
but he was trying to make an edict that only, to your point, Peter, only his viewpoint matters. That he's a representative of the entire town, and I don't feel with his comments that he was representing the entire town.
He was
Kevin.
telling us how he felt.
And this will be it for me.
And then
I
it will be
just-
Mr.
I just
Coulter.
feel that, and I agree with Scott, and then I don't agree with Scott, but again, this is the greatest debate that we talk about, is citizen participation and the rights of citizen participation. A committee was formed for a specific purpose. That was the petitioner's goal. Town meeting supported the petitioner, I believe overwhelmingly supported the petitioner's goal to begin this process. If somebody feels that the process isn't needed, the same process should be used. And I don't like putting committee after committee after committee, but that was the process used here. If there was a committee that would like to be formed to rebut those issues, that's where it has to go, is to the people. Town meeting are our legislators. We can't control this. You've got to go, if you believe so strongly that this doesn't exist, then you've got to go to the people that voted that committee's existence and see if they're open to a committee that would be disputing that information. Congress does this all the time. Committees, people get up on both sides of the aisle and they argue the issue. This person says it's 1, 2, 3. They're saying it's 4, 5, 6, and 8. That's the beauty of citizen participation, that everybody has a role. So, Scott, I'm not looking to start a committee, just to start a mess. But I believe the speaker before us tonight has a valid point. And it's not up to us. This is, to me, the greatest form of government when it works with citizen participation. I have a real question of the future of town meeting, but again, this is the process we're using. This is the process that was used to create this committee. I will sit with anyone, Mr. Town Manager, anyone that we have to do, because when these people do sit on these committees, it's a town meeting committee, but they represent the town of Stoughton. If there's profanity and there's rudeness and there's people that are not being treated fairly, I'm ready to make a move on something like that. But I would start by bringing it to people's attention. And I'm going to cut myself. I think you know my position on this. I believe everybody has a voice. And use the same process that they used and see if town meetings support you. If not, you go, you have a right to be at those meetings, you can voice your opinion. But what that committee does is the reason they were formed. Mm-hmm. So, and I did say to Mr. Gito, I says, I think I'm going to be very quiet tonight. Sorry, Lou.
Thank you, Mr. McCrisky.
That is not the answer, and I appreciate his trying to chime in and help out, but really having another committee is just simply not the answer. The bottom line is, I went to a meeting, it hadn't even started, and I was sworn at. I was told to shut the F up. That's the bottom line, and I'm asking for help. I'm asking for the committee that appointed them to address it, or to tell me who it is that will address it and who they will be accountable to, and I'm still at square one. I'm going around in circles with this because of the answers that I've been given, and I don't think they mean to do that, but this is what's happening. I still don't have this person being accountable for saying what they said to me, or for not allowing me to speak and impinging upon my freedom of speech before a meeting even started.
I would like to address, if that's a committee appointed by the select board, are they required to have public comment, because that's another thing I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that you needed to fight for, to allow for public comment. And in that way, you didn't have to burden the town meeting with a whole nother committee. You're just looking to have some critical
To right or wrong.
thinking involved in the committee's recommendations, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Exactly, right. And
I think that these boards, I don't think have to have public comment. 'Cause I think one of the town
Wasn't it Camp?
Representative Roberta Camacho, I think she's the one that pushed for that, citizens' comments. I might be wrong on her
But
person.
even if it's not required, don't you think it
Yes,
should
they
be
should, they
open?
should.
If they're truly transparent and truly want citizen participation, why wouldn't they? What are they trying to hide?
Well,
I was-
it's because it throws the meeting off. That's what they always say.
Yeah.
That's why they want you to get on the agenda. But the agenda, you can never get there.
You can
So
carve
it's-
3 minutes. You
it's-
can carve some time for. I mean, there's a compromise
to
to be
want to.
made there as well.
All right, so
And I heard that in Canton, the AFL-CIO stepped in because there wasn't any public comment, and they said that went against what the rights were. I don't know how. I don't know. That's just what I heard.
well, I
I'm
don't
not
know.
sure if that's.
But I'm, like I said before, I'm in favor of public comments
Me
because
too.
that's the only way you can get on there to say what you
only-
want to say.
Yep.
But Joe made a statement there. If there's anything wrong, he'd like to get involved. Well, I think
That's wonderful
I'm
that he
pleading
offered that.
to the citizens of the town to get involved and call the Board of Selectmen to have something done because it's not right. Just put yourself, if it was your girlfriend or your wife or your mother, and somebody on the board says, F you. I mean, how would you feel? You'd want to kill this guy. All right, so the Board of Selectmen, if they're any kind of gentleman, that fire this guy off of that board because he does not belong there. Nobody belongs on there. I don't care if there's a code or no code. It's just something you don't do. So I'm asking everybody that's watching the show, call a selectman and tell them you want to see something done. You got
And this
anything
is
else?
just one example of I'm sure, more who hasn't had the perseverance that Johna
Yes.
has shown. And I commend you for having the determination and courage to do, because
you.
I know you're a gentle lady, even though you have been called aggressive, which is the farthest thing from the truth, if anybody knows you. And for you to, it takes a lot of courage you're not only standing up for yourself when you do this,
wanna
you are
stand for
standing up for
everyone.
everyone coming behind you, and accolades to
Thank
yourself.
you. Because I want this not to happen to somebody else, and this isn't behavior that should be condoned. This is behavior that needs to be transformed.
And held
And
accountable.
held accountable, exactly.
In all the
yeah.
years I've been involved in town government, I've been in almost 30 years maybe as town meeting rep. I've never heard of anything like this happening before in any town boards or any town committees where somebody used the F-bomb on another member. And this person wasn't a member, she wanted to be a member. So like I say, she needs your help. So please, help her out. All right,
Thank
you want to move on? Kevin?
Madam Chair, I'll be very brief. I want to echo what Mr. Gito said with respect to the process. I think he said it very eloquently, so I'm not going to speak to that point. I'd like to speak to what was done in response to the behavior of that committee, because I want that committee to know that under the leadership of Mr. Cavey, we met with Ronna at length and listened to what happened in that meeting. Two separate meetings with the committee. In response to that, I can tell you with certainty, Mr. Cavey spoke to the chair of that committee at great length. I'm going to go so far as to say hours, about the role, the code of conduct in this town with respect to people who work in service to the town. And Mr. Cavey then instructed me to resend the code of conduct that this esteemed board passed 6 months ago to every elected and appointed official of this town. And we did that. And we've received back from at least 50% of those members their acknowledgement of receipt in their understanding of the code of conduct. So I think in terms of remediation, and Joe points this out often, and I agree with him, you are a policy-making committee. You've done your part. You've made policy. And when people break the policy, as it appears may have happened, they're held accountable, and Vice Chairman Cavey did that. And he did it at length and to the best of his ability with respect to understanding what's expected of all of us with respect to behavior. We sent out the code of conduct and have actually asked for the confirmation. In terms of starting that committee, Ronna knows clearly that that's an open door. And if she chooses to follow that process of asking town meeting body, the legislative body, to create a committee, all I'd say is don't wait for me to call. You come in, you tell us, I'm going to bring the town clerk up, we're going to go through the bylaw. If that's something you choose to do, we'll serve you. We'll hold your hand, we'll walk you through it, we'll show you how to do it. What we can't do, and I think that's how the dispute started several months ago, citizens can't expect that we're going to proactively call out and offer our service. If anybody needs help, call us. That's why we have 2 doors in that office. One of them's always open, and we're happy to walk you through it. You know that. We've been here several times, and Mr. Cavey has been in there. So I said I'd be brief. I'll end it there. I think we dealt with the behavioral issues, and Steve did a remarkable job of laying it out to everyone what we expect of them. But as Joe points out, your authority goes only so far. And I think this board has exercised the full extent of its authority on this issue.
Rebuttal.
Well, I've had a different experience with the select men he's just talking about now. In a different committee. It was the Get Out the Vote committee that was a one-sided, it was not a fair and impartial, and it didn't involve the stakeholders, which would have been the Democrat town committee and the Republican town committee, who should all, that's their main function for existing in town, and was not involved. So again, we have a select men issue with appointing committees and people on committees in a nutshell.
Okay, I want to say one thing. We're running out of time. We got seconds here. You just heard the town manager say that this code, conduct code, was implemented, I don't know, 6 months ago, and that's way before Johna's problem. So this code of conduct was already enforced, so they better enforce it. So I'm going to sign off. Thank you for watching, and please help her out. Make your call to the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.